NFL training camp is live. We're getting already first couple days inundated with news, quotes, PUP list, injuries, all sorts of chaos. And we got a lot of time. We got another month and a half to dive into all the chaos from NFL training camp. But first, before we get really in the weeds of the NFL offseason and best ball draft season, we are going to dive into our preseason best ball award winners. You're familiar with preseason awards across all sports and, of course, postseason awards, MVP, comeback player, coach of the year, and a couple other little wrinkles that we're going to throw in there specific to best ball. But the players that fit some of these awards that either we want to draft, or maybe we don't want to draft for the 2023 best ball season. Myself, Rob Coakley. So we're going to get into right now. Let's do it.
1, liftoff.
Rob, it's been a little while since we've actually been able to talk here.
But look at us, color coordinated.
I know. We literally haven't spoken other than a handful of Slack messages in like a week, and we're color coordinated. We were only 2 minutes late, and we haven't done any show prep, like in terms of, we both discussed really quickly, like what some of the awards should be. But if we land on some of those same things, I'm going to start to get a little worried, and hopefully my wife doesn't watch because she'll start to get a little worried. Like, you guys are spending a little too much time together. If without speaking, you're wearing the same color clothes and you're picking all the same players for your best ball awards.
Yeah. I mean, she was with us in Nashville. She knows.
She knows it's an illness. The sicko thing is not just because we draft too many best ball teams. It's a personal issue that some of us have.
So, just since we're speaking of the color that we're wearing, which is like this baby blue UNC blue situation, I bought my first fitted hat in like 10 years, I think, because I bought the new Jordans, the UNC Jordans that came out.
Yep.
I went to Lids and hats are $45 now.
Oh my God.
And
I used to go like, sorry to cut you off, but Lids was like my joint. Like, I worked at Finish Line in high school. Okay. And the Lids was 2 doors down. I basically I should have rented the store in between and put a bed in there, because I basically lived between those two places, but I haven't been in so long that it legit shook me to my core when you said the hats were $40.
Dude, I flipped it over because I'm like, all right, this matches the Jordans, like that's good. And it was $45, and it just became that I think you should leave meme where it goes, what the fuck is this world? What did they do to us? What did they do to us? And I'm just like, Jesus Christ.
Oh man, I remember the days when I was in high school working at the Finish Line at the mall close to my house, which is probably not going to be. It is still around, but probably not for much longer. Judging by the crowds that are there when I drive by nowadays. But all my paychecks went to gas to get to the mall, food that I would buy at the mall food court, shoes and hats. And that was, I came back and I would still, you ask your parents for money to go out and have somebody get you booze on Saturday night or whatever, right? It was just a total train wreck of an existence in high school. But it is funny, thinking about that. And here's a stupid, cheesy ass parallel. But how much all that stuff has changed. I was a sneakerhead. There's a closet down here in my office that has a bunch of old Jordans and stuff like that. And I used to collect sneakers, and I had a wall of hats and all that. Obviously, I still wear hats, but I anytime a new Cardinals hat came out, right? They had that year's Jackie Robinson hat or whatever. Snap bought it that day or whatever. And I'm so disconnected, and that whole world has changed so much that I'm, it's taken a big adjustment. I'm trying to get a little bit back into the retro sneakers. Yeah. But it's very, very hard because the whole space is so different, and every shoe that I want is $600 or whatever. And it feels a little bit as crazy as this weird parallel sounds with the best ball stuff. I was listening to last week's episode of Ship Chasing earlier today, and Pat Carrain, of course, winner of best ball Mania 3 last year said something along the lines of, as it pertains to the running back stuff, because someone on the show mentioned something about this guy's a good value as a running back. And he was like, yeah, but we have to make sure that we don't get sucked into the running back value, because the whole game has changed. Right. From the moment the draft starts, maybe CMC, but almost once you get past CMC, the best value on the board is a running back until like round 17 or 18. Like the whole game has changed. And it was just funny because you were mentioning that, and I'm like, oh my God, am I so out of touch now? I don't know how much hats cost. And like, it's easy to get lost in that in fantasy football too, particularly, you know, on the best ball sites, maybe not your home league, but just like the shit has changed so much, man. Like all the best picks are running backs, which sounds weird to say from a wide receiver bro. But the part of the reason why we were wide receiver bros was because there were 9 running backs that went in the first round and then 6 more in the second round. And like now it's like you might leave one draft and CMC's the only running back in the first round. It's so crazy how it's all changed.
It's just all like within the course of 3 years, just completely different game, right? And that was kind of the point I was making on some show. It might have been the Swolecast, it might have been something else. I don't even remember at this point, but like the data that we're recording for these drafts, and I understand you can tweak them and stuff like that, but year over year right now, the drafts are so different that like getting a 5-year, 10-year sample size is going to matter at that point? Like, or is it not going to matter? 10 years, maybe 5 years? I don't think it's going to, right? Like, so to your point, everything is constantly changing. Josh is telling us in the chat that there are limited hats that are $70 plus, and he just
show me the hat. Show me this fucking hat.
Show me a $70 hat,
dude. Everyone knows I catch grief every once in a while. Like, does Erik ever not wear a hat? You know, because I literally every show I have a hat on or whatever. I like hats, okay, and it's just part of my one of my many flaws. I'm always wearing a hat. I'm not spending $70 on a hat. I got a whole closet full of fucking hats.
Yeah.
None of them were even close to $70. That's absurd. That's absolutely absurd. And this is coming from a person who's online shopping for old school Penny Hardaway sneakers that are like $700, which I know, you know, is such an obscure thing that nobody cares about except me. But a hat is a little bit different. Like, I don't think I don't know. Josh, you'll have to tell us. I don't feel like the shoes are like legitimately an investment now. Like, there's only so many of those pennies that were made, you know, like look at what happened. I'm not trying to, this is going to be really morbid, but you know, like if you bought Kobe stuff, right? If you buy LeBron stuff now before he retires, if you buy this is an appreciating asset. So, I don't know that hats are, but Josh would have to tell me if I'm wrong about that.
I just want to show you something since we're on this topic. So this right here, this is my very first pair of sneakers, the original Air Jordan 1s.
Yep, Jordan 1s, yep.
When I was a baby, like my first pair of sneakers. Do you know what like this condition is selling for this
still
comic?
A shit ton. Yeah.
I could sell these, I think, for $2,000 right now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I never will, but like I could sell these like for $2,000. It's just crazy.
I got my Jordans that I wore. So full disclosure, I'm 34, right? So we're approaching 20 years since I've been in high school. I have my Jordans that I always wore Jordans. You know, we went to school back in the day where basketball teams bought team shoes. You had the sales rep from the local sporting goods store that came to your school, presented your team with the catalog of all the different shoes that you could buy, and you picked out team shoes. We were rebels, and we're like, we're not doing you could buy team shoes, but you know, me and some of the other guys were sneaker guys, and we would buy our own Jordan. I was a Jordan guy. Mm-hmm. And we would buy Jordans. And so right over here, almost 20-year-old Jordans that I wore playing basketball as a 16, 17, 18-year-old or whatever. And same thing, I've looked up, like they're in shit condition, right? Because I played basketball in them for a year. Right. And same thing, hundreds, not $2,000 for those, because those are really, really niche and hard to find in particular, but hundreds and hundreds of dollars for these. I mean, they look like shit. No one's ever going to wear them, but there's only so many of them out there. You know what I mean? Like nobody has them. And so anyway, we're diving into one of my other niche hobbies and things that I'm passionate about other than best ball. But I do find that whole collectibles are fascinating to me, like legitimately fascinating.
And the shifting markets and everything like that. Like, it's just crazy. Speaking of collectibles, we're going to get into these awards real quick. Yeah, whatever, Jesse. I mean, what are we doing here? This Sunday on the Sunday Sicko Show, 10 a.m., we are giving away this replica Deshaun Jackson signed.
Oh shit!
helmet.
I want that.
So it's very simple. What you have to do, you just have to go to our Discord, go to the giveaway channel, and all you have to do is leave us a 5-star and written review on iTunes. You click a button that's for 5 stars, you write, "This podcast is awesome," or "Great podcast," and you're all set to go. And we are also going to be giving away an authentic Kurt Warner Arizona Cardinals helmet in the middle of
Cardinals
August. But
I would take it. I would take it if it was a Rams.
Well,
helmet.
yeah, but I have Cardinals one.
I also have the power to spam my own name in these giveaways, and if it was a Rams Kurt Warner one, you bet your ass it would be right behind me for the rest of time. But speaking of that, I also wanted to announce we are so far fucking off the rails on this show, by the way, but such is life. The other thing I wanted to mention with the reviews, that I'm stealing this from other podcasts. This is not new. I know you guys do it / have done it on your other show. But what I do want to do is reward the folks that and also allow you to get some questions answered. If you leave a 5-star podcast review and write your review, you could write it about anything for all that I care. Or if you leave a comment on this YouTube video, the next show that we do, we will go through the comments and read as long as they're appropriate, and kind of read them. If you have a question that you want asked to us, I want to start doing that on our show. So tomorrow, Rob and I are going to be doing an exposure show. Kind of, we're closing in on the season. We've drafted, I'm closing in on 300 teams or something like that. And so we'll review those, but you can get your questions answered, again, as long as they're appropriate, by posting a review on the podcast feed or leaving a comment on this specific video. And then we'll kind of use that moving forward as another way, more than just, we can't get to everything that's in the chat all the time. We can't always get to everything that's in the Discord. This is a way to kind of consolidate that and allow you to get your questions, or just if you just want to leave a comment, like, I think Erik's hat collection fucking sucks, like, put that. I don't care. I'll read it. Like, you know what I mean? But just another way, along with the giveaways that Rob is mentioning, we can help get a little bit more, some of the stuff you guys want to talk about on here, as well as our show subjects.
Perfect. And if we start getting a lot of those, we'll just start doing like a mailbag show every month.
Exactly.
Or every couple weeks.
Yeah. If there's too many, we can schedule a new one, and the season will be here soon where we won't be drafting tons of teams. We can talk about those on there. But that's mostly about it for the housekeeping. I guess I do just want to say, if you are a subscriber on the website to the premium tools, the Draft Hacker, Draft IQ, thank you, and I hope you're enjoying them. The upgrades have been amazing. Shout out to Hacker the Draft Hacker is like the sickest fantasy football tool I've ever seen in my entire life. What he has done is unbelievable. And also some of the comments that were in the Discord today saying, like, we knew that the tool was down the moment it was down, because you sickos are out there drafting with it 24/7. It's like 2:30 in the afternoon on a Monday, and people are like, hey, is the tool, is the tool down? Because it's not working for me. I can't draft without it. But we had a small little hiccup this afternoon. It's back up and running. So everything is all good. In case you had submitted a support ticket or been in the Discord and missed that message, everything is back up and running. So I did just want to hit that up really quickly. But we are, Jeff says, holy crap, 300 drafts. Yeah. I thought I might get to 1,000 this year, but life doesn't always give you everything that you want. But I'm definitely going to more than double this down the stretch. The last couple weeks of the year will be a grind, and I will be drafting a lot. And you'll see tomorrow on our exposure show that I've drafted entirely on underdog up until this point, not by choice. Shout out to DraftKings for some account issues, but we're getting that resolved. And I'm about to be a DraftKings and drafters fiend down the stretch. So yeah, maybe road to 1,000 drafts here down the stretch is what we might be doing. But nonetheless, today, what we wanted to talk about, preseason awards. I actually think this is a pretty fun conversation because it's definitely fun and kind of a funny like little bit way to talk about some of your favorite players or least favorite players or concepts for the season. But I also think these little different ways to think about best ball help me start to conceptualize some things. Actually, when you start to think about like, who's your favorite coach of the year? Who's your favorite newcomer of the year? Who is you mentioned the he can't keep getting away with this award that we're going to get to a little bit later. It's like you start to think about those things, and it does make you start to process actually like the draft macro landscape a little bit differently and a little bit better. So I always find these actually, I feel like I learned something from the exercise when we do some of these like award shows or rank the offenses or some of those different things, as opposed to just, there's nothing wrong with showing up and drafting every time, right? Or talking about players or whatever. But I like to do these shows and make sure we mix them in because they're helpful for me. So hopefully if they're helpful for me, they're helpful for someone else too.
They let you hear your own thought process behind stuff, but also another person's. And you start to break down like, well, I'm thinking this because of this, but should I be? Or like, maybe I need to hammer this a little bit harder. So yeah, every time we do these shows, the offenses ones, what we're doing today, because I'm sure we might have some overlap on a few, but there's a few things that like, as I was thinking about a few of these today, I was like, maybe I need to continue to hammer this team, or maybe I need to pump the brakes a little bit on this team or whatever. So excited to get into it.
Yeah. So really quick, I'll pull up the awards here in just a second, but quick preface, if you're watching or listening later, or of course watching later, the thesis of these awards is that they are, of course, we're going to get to something like most valuable player. It is through a best ball lens. So this is not, if we're picking an MVP, both of us, Patrick Mahomes, like Patrick Mahomes would be my pick to win MVP in the real football season. But who would be the most valuable player in best ball, right? And that's up to Rob. And I did not talk about the specifics. Rob could pick an 18th round guy or a first round guy. I don't care. And you guys can have your own. As we start to have that discussion, please feel free in the chat to drop those in there. But all of these awards are through the right coach of the year. Which NFL coach is the most impactful for best ball drafters, those kinds of things. So just make sure to keep that in mind, that it's not, a real life NFL conversation. And so very first, I'm sharing my screen here. The very first award that we're just going to hop right into, I got them in a totally random order, is Comeback Player of the Year. So of course, in real life, Comeback Player of the Year, a lot of the times is from injury or from a health scare or something like that. This is, of course, again, totally up to you. But Rob, what were you thinking about in Comeback Player of the Year?
I was trying to figure out how I wanted to address this in a best ball lens type of deal. And I think the obvious one is like Breece Hall is probably going to be the quote unquote comeback player of the year, right? Like if you were going to put money on it, I would probably put money on Breece Hall with the ACL injury and all that stuff. And maybe that's your pick. I'm going to go a little off script here. And it's a guy that wasn't injured last year. The team actually threw the ball a ton, but he wasn't what we think of when we think of this player. And I think he's going to have, weirdly, like a bounce back year just based on volume. I'm going to go with Chris Godwin of the Buccaneers. Because there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. We're pretty sure the Buccaneers are going to be terrible. I don't think this is going to turn into a Seahawks situation from last year. But I think just volume-wise and what Chris Godwin can do on the field, especially in PPR sites, more so than like underdog. So on your drafters, on your DraftKings, I think Chris Godwin can be that guy that can be a solid, like depending on how you structure and draft your team, I think he's going to be like a really solid wide receiver 3 or 4, in some cases a wide receiver 5 if you're just like really hammering the wide receiver
Yep.
position. So I think he's going to bounce back and produce more than he did last year. So I'm going to go with Chris Godwin for that one.
He's certainly going to be healthier. I was listening to Stealing Bananas, which of course is RotoViz podcast with Sean Siegel and Ben Gretsch, two of the best minds out there. I love listening to them talk through things. And Ben said something. He's drafting Godwin a lot this year and mentioned that Godwin said in a quote around week 8 or week 9, somewhere, it doesn't matter exactly specifically, but somewhere around that time of last year, he had a good game, and the reporters were asking him afterwards, just, how he felt about the game, blah, blah, blah. And he said, well, this was the first time I really felt like I was pretty much back to the old me, which is like kind of crazy because he played. He had been playing that whole time, dragging around his leg, J.K. Dobbins style out there, right? Catching a million passes from Tom Brady, but he really was not healthy for or more than half the year, probably more, because even though he felt healthy in week 9 or whatever, he probably still wasn't 100%. Like, think about that, what the guy was doing. Like, that's how good he is, man. And he and the Bucs are actually one of my biggest struggles of the whole season, because you're always balancing that team level analysis in which I think, like you said, some people might fall into the trap of, oh, this is the Seahawks of last year. And I think that's a fool's errand. I think assuming there will be a Seahawks of this year is a fool's errand, right? Because that's an anomaly, right? It's like it's like using Devontae Adams as an archetype for every receiver that sucks for 3 years and then becomes elite. It's like, guess what? There's only one Devontae Adams. He wanted to quit football after 3 years, and now he's the best wide receiver in the NFL. Let's probably not assume that everyone's going to be that. But also, Chris Godwin is awesome. Like, he's such a good football player. He is certainly not a 5th, 6th, 7th round draft pick in terms of if we were racking and stacking wide receiver talent. But Baker Mayfield's also like the opposite at quarterback. Like, he's really, really bad. And so that's definitely my biggest struggle, but I love Chris Godwin. I went a little definitely on the bit side of things, but there's 2 wide receivers who've been suspended for gambling escapades in the last several years. One of them also got drafted in the top 10 and then was coming back from an ACL last year, and we basically did not see them play. So this is maybe a smidge cheating because hasn't really done anything in the NFL yet necessarily, but I chose Jameson Williams because if you want to talk about coming back from a lot of stuff, Jameson Williams tore his ACL at the very, 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 very end of the college football season, his last year at Alabama. Barely got to play last year because of it. They brought him along slowly, despite drafting him very, very highly. And then, of course, gets popped 6 games for gambling. But I can't help but think once he comes back, when I start to look at the Lions offense and just say, Amon-Ra St. Brown is going to monopolize all kind of the underneath targets, and maybe you have Sam Laporta there, right, too, and Jahmyr Gibbs, quite frankly. They got that area of the field on lock, and add David Montgomery in, running up the middle for 3 yards. But, like, there's a whole area of the field in this elite offense where you can't like double JMO. You can't you can't treat him like the elite downfield player that he is. Because if you do that, like, Gibbs is going to crush you, or Laporta is going to crush you. Certainly, Amon-Ra is going to crush you if you leave him in single coverage all day. So, like, how do you handle the Lions' offense once JMO is back? And when he's back in this offense, I know Jared Goff is maybe not the world's best down the field thrower or whatever, but like, if he's going to be in single coverage all day in the dome on the turf in Detroit, like, this guy is going to blow the heck up after that 6-week suspension. And I understand in best ball, we have to find a way to get him, get to week 7 with teams that we draft him on to where we're not in such a big hole that it hurts us. But he's going late enough. He's not going so early that we can't recover from this. All the other good wide receivers are gone anyway. It's totally fine. I feel like he's going to come back and people are going to remember why he was such an elite prospect and such a high draft pick, and why the Lions offense is so awesome. I mean, you combine all Amon-Ra, J-Mo, Laporta, Gibbs, Demont, everybody's raving about Denzel. they added Denzel Mims or whatever, but Josh Reynolds is not a known, like, he's been fine. He's been a competent NFL wide receiver. Their offense is just, with a great offensive line. J-Mo, I think, is just going to blow the top off of best ball and be the comeback player. What do you think about him?
I definitely think that's clearly a possibility. We saw what he could do in like very limited snaps last year. The thing with him, though, is in order to put him on a best ball team, I think you have to be building specific best ball, like, structured teams in order for him to actually fit. Luckily for us, I think it's the structures that we're comfortable building.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So, like, when I have built like a robust RB team just to try to like get a little bit of different variance in my portfolio, he can't go on those teams. Like, you just can't have.
You need the wide receiver juice, right? Yeah,
right.
Early, like right away. Yeah.
Yeah, so he just doesn't fit on those specific teams. There's a few others that, like, maybe he generally, I feel like, cannot come off the board as your wide receiver 3 generally, but like maybe your wide receiver 4. And again, it's like nothing's 100% and you can still build however the hell you want to build. But I do like him a lot. I do grab him, but it is very much a very specific couple different builds that I'm putting him on. Unfortunately, because how much higher would he be if he'd be 2 or 3 rounds higher? We would actually be having a discussion about, like, can we even draft him based on like lack of knowledge of who he is?
Dude, Gabe Davis flew up to the 4th round last year. J-Mo would do something very, very similar. I don't know if he'd exactly be the 4th round, but look at the 4th round right now. It's like Terry McLaurin and the 5th round's like, the kind of sketchy wide receiver zone. He would be right with those guys 100% if he wasn't suspended.
Absolutely. And we'd still probably be taking him because we'd be thumping about the upside, right? So I do like him.
You kick this one off as well. Coach of the year for best ball.
You want me to go first on this one as well?
Yeah, go first on this one.
Okay, so I was a little unclear of what we were going to determine the rules for this, but I came up with 2 and I decided to stick with the head coach. I was between my pick and an offensive coordinator, actually.
Huh. That's funny. Mine is an offensive coordinator, to be clear. So you can name both of them if you'd like.
All right. I will just name my head coach then, and I will tell you if I had the same offensive coordinator as you. I'm going to go with Sean Payton because
that's a good one.
I think if anyone's going to turn around Denver in 1 year, this is a guy that can do it. They have the potential to do something. They could still fall on their face right out the gate again. Like, that's totally an option, but
they're going to show up later in the conversation, by the way, on a different award. So we'll get to it. Sorry, go ahead.
No worries. But I just think that, like, we're talking about a guy that knows how to run his team. He's not going to take any shit. He knows how to get what he wants out of his players. And I think that Sean Payton might just actually make our best ball teams better this year over in Denver.
I agree. He's a really good candidate for this because last year everybody bought the Broncos steam with Russ, and the coaching. Russ's play, of course, let them down, but the coaching is possibly the biggest factor. We're going to find out this year if coaching was the biggest factor. So we are going to see. So I actually had 2 offensive coordinators. Zane mentioned one of them who I had narrowed my list down to. Erik Bieniemy is definitely on a short list for this award. I totally agree. He could, if he is as good as his Chiefs track record suggests, right? Was it all Andy Reid, or was he part of the reason why the Chiefs were so good from an offense? Obviously Mahomes, but was he part of the mastering their offense? He's on that short list, but I picked another offensive coordinator, and it's Todd Monken. From the Baltimore Ravens. Baltimore Ravens. And it's because the Ravens have been awesome since Lamar Jackson's been there. I mean, they made the playoffs before when he was a rookie and Joe Flacco was the quarterback. But under Greg Roman, they ran a very archaic offense, very, very, very run heavy. And I think they were able to succeed enough in the regular season. And obviously when you have Lamar Jackson as your quarterback and you're run heavy, that can work. But I think they realized that they'd been topped out. You get to the playoffs and you run into other good teams and you're going to try to, just grind them to death. And the other team has Patrick Mahomes and you can't come from behind with your old school archaic offense. And now you insert Todd Monken, and everything out of Baltimore is, we're going to throw the shit out of the ball. We're going to play fast. We're going to spread you out. What did Monken say the other day? I hope Lamar remembers his Louisville days, because that's how it's going to be, all over the place, throwing it, running, going crazy or whatever. And Lamar's talking about throwing for 6,000 yards. Obviously, all of this is hyperbole and hype and
right.
A little too much. But I think, like, where there's smoke, there's fire. And we have a track record of Todd Monken and how he operates offenses. Rashad Bateman, Zay Flowers, Odell Beckham, Mark Andrews, Isaiah Likely, J.K. Dobbins, Lamar Jackson. Ravens dogs are on the board with are on board with the Ravens. There's so much talent, and this OC that's coming in and saying, I got all this talent. It's time to take this shit to the moon and stop with the 3 yards in a cloud of dust stuff. And if it comes true, every Raven is too cheap. Even Mark Andrews going in the 3rd round. If what Monken is saying is true, every single Raven is too cheap, and he will undoubtedly be the best ball coach of the year, because just about all these guys are massive, massive values and can be huge hits all together on one team, right? With the Lamar stack and just across your portfolio. They're all undervalued if that comes true.
That's a good one. Olaf actually hit the offensive coordinator that I was thinking about taking instead of Peyton, which was Kellen Moore over the Chargers.
It's a good one.
So as the dogs went off, just wanted to throw this out there. Not sure if you were able to catch the second half of the 11th and 12th picks of you guys' high stakes draft.
I haven't watched it yet.
Well, I hopped in.
I don't even know who we took. I don't even know.
I hopped in and I was Erik Beimfohr for a short segment, and I tried to recreate what Erik Beimfohr would do, and I missed it by not having the dog noises go off in the background. I was so mad at myself after I did it. I was like, I should have played some like dog barking noises, and I would have absolutely nailed it.
And I just
didn't do it. So, but yes, I got to have a little fun on that show.
That is so good. That is amazing. All right. Next one. And of course, I made Rob lead off on the first two. So I will hit the next one. And this is where we're getting into.
Oh, fun.
A little bit more fun one. And this one is, I think there's a lot of options for this, right? Obviously, there's a lot of guys who have failed in fantasy. And of course, if you're unfamiliar with this, I put the picture on there because I know that it's not necessarily clear to everyone. This is one of my favorite memes, though. Lucy and Charlie Brown Award, meaning if you've seen the famous kind of GIF meme video, whatever, Lucy puts the football out. Charlie Brown is going to go kick it. And when he goes to kick it, she pulls it out from under him. You know, if you were into NFTs, you're probably quite familiar with this, with this whole process. But there was one guy who, after I kind of like really thought about it and went through the player pool, this is not for me. I want this to be clear, but for the fantasy community as a whole, Michael Thomas. Michael Thomas was the wide receiver one, like I was talking about when I was at Finish Line as a high schooler. It feels like it was about that long ago when Michael Thomas was really good for fantasy. And we keep doing this thing, right? He's hurt every single year. He's getting older, but he's Michael Thomas. Remember when Michael Thomas was good? And now this year we're doing remember those, what was it, 3 games or whatever? Remember those 3 games? He caught that goal line fade. Did you see that goal line fade? And it's like, this guy has ankles made like Steph Curry. He's got one leg. He's older now. They've kind of added on yeah, I knew. I was wondering if Updog would watch, or if he wasn't watching it live, he would 100% be in the chat tomorrow talking about Michael Thomas, because I know he's very anti Michael Thomas. But we are holding on to this Michael Thomas thing, and he still goes in the top 100. People will complain about Calvin Ridley and JMO and Penny and right, Kadarius Toney, who is now injured again, of course. Like people, oh ha ha ha, you drafted Kadarius Toney. Like, have you drafted Michael Thomas in the last 3 years? Like, what is the difference? Like, this guy is always hurt, and he's much older now. And they brought in a bunch more guys now. They have Chris Olave is the lead of that team. Rashid Shaheed is not an incompetent other wide receiver. Kamara, who knows what'll happen, right? Drafted Kendre Miller, have Juwan Johnson and Foster Moreau. They have other dudes to throw the ball to now. Mm-hmm. And we're still doing the Michael Thomas thing. And so if you're drafting him, you are Charlie Brown in this example.
So for mine, I decided to pick 2 players on the same team, one to be Lucy and one to be Charlie Brown.
I like it.
So for mine, because I've had to have this conversation for the entire last week since I was on the Swolecast, Lucy is Jimmy Garoppolo. Charlie Brown is Davante Adams.
Oh, no.
And that is going to be a shit show. I've been saying it all year. I'm not going to lay off this take that the stars, quote unquote stars, because Jimmy Garoppolo, Jesus Christ, not a star. Terrible football player. All you have to do is watch the games. You could throw all the stats you want at me because, like, that's what Davis was doing on this podcast.
EPA, bro. Have you seen it? Have you not seen his EPA?
Yeah.
Elite.
I mean, sometimes you do have to just do the goddamn eye test. Is Derek Carr a worse quarterback than Jimmy Garoppolo? No. I don't think so. I think Derek Carr is a better quarterback than Jimmy Garoppolo. You throw all the stats you want at me. What would Derek Carr have done on the San Francisco 49ers?
5,000 yards.
Right. Like, what are we doing here? Jimmy Garoppolo sucks. He has the injury that he's coming in with. Oh, he passed his physical. Great. I'm glad that's a metric for success for him right now. Now we're doing Jimmy Garoppolo passed his freaking physical, right? Great. I'm so glad for all of you. Davante Adams was already pissed to start the year. They got rid of his college teammate. He's already chirping a little bit. He's back down a little bit, but he was chirping at the beginning of the year. This is primed for a disaster. The Raiders are primed. Sometimes you just sit there and you watch and you see what teams are telling you. The Raiders are telling you that they are going to suck this year and that you don't want to draft them. Is Davante Adams a great wide receiver? Absolutely. But when Lucy, aka Jimmy Garoppolo, can't get him the goddamn football for the whole season, it's not going to matter how great he is, right? Like, and yeah, I know he has the great Week 17 matchup. We're all aware of that. But I'll take other Raiders. I'll take Michael Mayer late. I'll take Zamir White late. Like, I'll take those guys later.
He's not the only guy with the good week, right? That's like the Derrick Henry. Yeah. Did you know Derrick Henry plays the Texans twice in the playoffs? Yeah. So does Nuke and Burks and Tyjae Spears and Chig. They all play the Texans.
Yeah. So I will stay unless I somehow get auto drafted Davante Adams. I will have 0 Davante Adams. And it's not a Davante Adams take. It's a Jimmy Garoppolo / Raiders as an organization.
Hoyer's the backup, right?
Hoyer's the backup. They're screwed, right? Josh McDaniels sucks as a head coach. We've established that multiple times. The organization sucks at player development and player personnel decisions. The Raiders, they need like to just be completely like either sold. It's just unreal. It's unreal that I'm even having to have this conversation with people that they think that, and I don't even want to keep going into it because I get so annoyed. But Davante Adams is going to have a bad year. But it's not because he's Davante Adams. It's because of everything around him. And don't be shocked if you see Davante Adams get shut down in week 12 or something when this team is absolutely getting stomped every week. And they're like, we're not going to put him out there because we're paying him $8 million a snap. And we got to make sure we protect him a little bit, especially if we want to try to get rid of him at some point. So
I agree. I'm glad you did it. Also, that was an exceptional, processing of the award, much better than mine. And so I appreciate that, having literally filling a Lucy and a Charlie Brown on the award that's the perfect way to do it. And I mean, I'm not even really going to add to it because I've been talking about that with Jimmy and Davante since it happened. And I understand that not everyone agrees, and that's okay. Not everyone agrees with a lot of the takes that I have or we have or whatever, but I think that one is more than reasonable. Even if you're a bull on Davante Adams, I don't think that anyone could conceive of that as being crazy. I think that even if you think Jimmy is like much, much better than we do, I think you could conceptualize the idea that he was a little bit of a benefactor of the San Francisco system, as every quarterback that has played for San Francisco has been. Brock Purdy, most recently, right? Nick Mullins, those guys have produced numbers in that offense. So you could say, okay, his numbers are a little inflated by playing for San Francisco because everyone that plays for San Francisco puts up efficient numbers. You say, okay, but I think he's still good. Fine, whatever. I don't care really to argue with you. You say, well, is he better than Derek Carr? At best, they're about the same. I think any reasonable mind would say, if you like Jimmy just a smidge more, that's fine. If you like Carr just a smidge more, that's fine. At best, they're very, very similar. Well, you know what Derek Carr did with this team last year? He was shut down in the fantasy playoffs. They actually told him to not come to the facility. He got banned from the dude's making millions and millions of dollars a year. And they said, actually, please don't come here.
Just don't.
That's
come.
how they, yeah. And that, and you know, they had Jarrett Stidham, who is now the backup to Russell Wilson in Denver. Now it's Brian Hoyer. What do you think happens when the Raiders' shitty offense and terrible roster all around? Are they going to beat the Chiefs? No. Are they going to beat the Chargers? No. So it's them and the Broncos just in that division. Are they better than the Bengals? No. All right. Are they better than the Bills? No. Are they better than how do we need to keep going down the list? They're not going to be a playoff contender down the stretch. And if you think Devontae Adams is like going to put up with this as his career draws to an end, I feel like we have a different perception of how this situation is going to be. And that's okay. Devontae is amazing. If he has a good year, would I be surprised? No, he might be the best wide receiver in the NFL. But like, there's a lot to be concerned about. And he's a 1-2 turn pick. Right. There's a lot of opportunity cost there. So anyway, I said I wasn't going to say anything, but then I got on the soapbox.
Yeah.
Next,
there we have it.
Next award, I'll hit this one too. Rookie of the Year. This one's hard because there is like one guy who is the biggest standout of all time from a Rookie of the Year perspective in best ball, because there's only one rookie this year who goes in the first round. And so I'm taking the easy cop-out answer, and I am going to say Bijan Robinson is the Rookie of the Year, but I actually don't even really want to talk about Bijan Robinson. What I want to talk about is if I were to, because he's going to put up the best numbers, and if he gets to the end of the year, there's going to be one rookie that has like truly absurd numbers, and it's Bijan, in my opinion. The Falcons have an insanely efficient running game. It did not matter who was there. Marcus Mariota was terrible at quarterback. I don't care if you think Ritter sucks, because guess what? Marcus Mariota also sucked. And the running game was efficient as hell. And the running game was efficient with Tyler Algier, who played linebacker in college, not running back. CPAT, who's like 34 or whatever, and Caleb Huntley, who is not an NFL caliber running back. They were efficient no matter who they handed the ball to. That's Arthur Smith's game. That's what he does. He creates an efficient running game. We've also seen, fun fact, Derrick Henry become less efficient since Arthur Smith left. Something no one ever talks about. But if that's like the easy cop-out answer. Who I think could be like kind of the most impactful rookie when we start to consider ADP. I'm going super, super crazy with this one, but it's Jalen Hyatt for the New York Giants. So I understand all the flaws with Jalen Hyatt. Let's get that out of the way first. 3rd round pick, comes from a very unique offense at Tennessee that he didn't run a lot of like pro style routes. He's much more of a downfield burner out of the slot. It's not kind of something that the NFL really does. They don't run this, and Tennessee also runs a very weird system where like the outside guys line up really, really wide. And it's not a great fit. So I understand every concern with Jalen Hyatt, but he has now fallen to like, you can get him in one of the last rounds of best ball drafts. He did win the Biletnikoff. Like he was the wide receiver of the year in college in the SEC, right? That's Alabama. That's Georgia. That's big time football. And I feel like we're just like writing that off now. And if he hits, right, how many Biletnikoff winners land in a spot like the Giants where the best wide receiver on the Giants is Isaiah Hodgins, Darius Slayton, right? Paris Campbell. Like, what really is the competition?
Who did they just sign? Because I laughed. I died laughing when I saw who it was.
Did they sign another?
They signed another slot wide receiver.
Of course they did.
Oh, it was Cole Beasley. They signed Cole Beasley.
Adam. So when they go do wide receiver drills, there's like 3 dudes on the outside, and then the 6 guys go line up in the slot, right? Wandale and Crowder and Beasley, all the Paris Campbell, they all go line up in the slot, right? Spoiler, they can't all play. Hyatt is more talented than their other outside wide receivers. Do I, and I know he played in the slot at Tennessee, but like, do I believe that he can get on the field with his skill set over time? Absolutely. And if he hits, it's not about, do I think he'll hit? I don't know. Like, it's a very weird kind of situation. But if he hits, oh my God. Yeah, this is such a good one. Hacker said, Devonta Smith won the Heisman. Devonta Smith not only won the Biletnikoff, he won the Heisman. And everybody's like, he's like 165 pounds. Can he really do it? Spoiler alert, now he's a second round pick in fantasy. If you can play, you can play. I don't know if Jalen Hyatt will hit, but if he hits, we're talking about laughing all offseason about the fact that people let him fall to the 17th round.
God, I thought I was going to have like a unique pick here, like a... And I was like, good, because you came out with the Bijan stuff, and I was like, of course, Bijan's the first name you think of.
I didn't want to sound too crazy. Just kicking it off with Jalen Hyatt. I had to like lead into it.
Ease yourself into it. I'm going to go with Quentin Johnson because of the stuff we talked about with Kellen Moore. I think this offense is going to be more explosive, but I also think that you have a lot of outs for him to be on the field even more. The reports are that he's already won the wide receiver 3 spot, which is not shocking at all, right? Like, we're not shocked by the competition for the wide receiver 3, but Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, both older. Talk about a guy that can't stay on the field. Mike Williams cannot stay on the football field to save his life. So I think there's going to be a ton of opportunity for Quentin Johnson. I think he could be one of those rookies that you were like, oh, where we were getting him was a beautiful place. It was easy to double stack Herbert with him and Eckler or whatever you wanted to do, and they're one of the most explosive offenses in the NFL this year. So I'm just going to roll with Quentin Johnson based on ADP and everything, but obviously the answer is Bijan Robinson.
Yeah, the answer is definitely Bijan. Shout out to Dustin who said, all right, I'm going to have 100% high. Don't do that, please, God, don't do that. But I do think those are the kinds of guys similar to like how Kadarius Toney just goes, just got hurt. That is really wide range of outcomes. The difference is Toney was a 6th, 7th round pick. There's a lot of opportunity cost at the Toney spot. So if you said, I don't feel like taking that risk there, even though it's a home run swing, right? It's Joey Gallo swing. Mm-hmm. Jalen Hyatt is a Joey Gallo swing who is now in the 17th round. That's like, they're all going to miss most of the time. Like, you tell me a 17th rounder that it's like, oh, this is a slam dunk. No, because they wouldn't go in the 17th round if they were that. And so that's what God, Updog and I are agreeing too much. That's probably a bad omen. All right, next one, the usable week king. So quick preface on this one, a little bit straightforward, but a guy who is not necessarily going to be a bad pick when you look back at the end of the year and his fantasy stats, his actual stats, but he was just like humming along, 8 to 10 points every week, maybe as a wide receiver, 15 PPR points a week, 7 for 75, never really blowing the lid off. And we look back and we're like, oh, he had a really good year. But for best ball, did he? Like, did he have a good year? Kind of a little bit of an overrated type guy. What do you got for this one?
Yeah, I pitched this as the epitome of mediocrity award. So usable week king works a little bit better. I'm going to go with David Montgomery. We like the Lions a lot this year. They're going to be a good offense. David Montgomery just feels like he's going to come in. He's going to have weeks where he rushes for 90 yards and no touchdowns. He's going to have weeks where he rushes for 20 yards and a touchdown. He's just going to constantly be around that 8 to 12 point range. I don't really think he's going to get many spike weeks. I don't think he's going to have the opportunity for a quote unquote spike week, really, unless it becomes, they get on the 1 yard line 3 times in a game or something like that.
2 years in a row.
Yeah. It's like they have to keep doing that over and over again. So I think that he's going to be just enough of a nuisance that the Jahmyr Gibbs stuff is going to hurt a little bit, especially on a site like Underdog, right? I think Jahmyr Gibbs is much better on the PPR sites for sure. I don't think that's like an unreasonable take.
No.
But I think Montgomery is going to hurt Gibbs on Underdog specifically. And I think you're just going to sit there and he's going to be the guy. He's going to be the usable week king where he either you have him on your team and he just misses you getting into that second spot, or you're trying to overtake the guy in the second spot, and this guy is just getting enough points, just enough from David Montgomery to keep you at bay, and you miss the playoffs, and you're just sitting there, God damn it, I lost both ways on this. How? So that's where I'm going.
That's a really good way to frame it. I also went with a running back. I went with a running back who has definitely not been a usable week type guy over the course of his career, but I think he's going in the running back dead zone, and I think we're drafting him a little bit too high for some of the wrong reasons. And mine was Aaron Jones. And my thought process is Aaron Jones has been a fantasy star because of spike week and non-elite running back usage, but he was attached to Aaron Rodgers. And then the team drafted A.J. Dillon in the second round, and it's let's just call it a 50-50 split. Sometimes it's 60-40 Jones, sometimes it's 60-40 Dillon, but let's call it a 50-50 split. Now we're still taking him right in the heart of the running back dead zone, even though Aaron Rodgers is not there anymore. And it's like everyone on the planet thinks that Jordan Love sucks, but his part-time running back is in the middle of the dead zone, and like that's a good selection. I think Aaron Jones is awesome. This is a little bit similar to the Devontae thing, to a lesser extent, where I think Aaron Jones is like really good at football. He's an awesome receiving back. He's explosive, but he's certainly not a grinder. And there's real concerns about this offense. Jordan Love could be very bad. We talked about Jimmy before. We don't have any evidence that Jordan Love's even better than Jimmy. Christian Watson had some explosive plays with Aaron Rodgers, but he's definitely not some consistent, target dominator that leads a good offense. Romeo Doubs, Jaden Reed, Luke Musgrave couldn't do it in college. Like, I don't know. It's pretty sketchy there. And you're a part-time back who's relying upon big plays and touchdowns to get there. I think Aaron Jones ends up being like this, runs for 40 yards a week and catches 3 balls for 15 yards or something like as an average. And you just get a bunch of weeks where you're like, oh yeah, he scored double-digit points. And the end of the year, you look back like, oh, he scored 11 points a game. That's not that bad. And you're like, actually, but he just like always scored 8 to 15 points. And do you really care about that? A little bit of a Packers take, a little bit of a he's getting older, a little bit of A.J. Dillon. I can't see it with Aaron Jones unless Jordan Love is a star, which I'll hold that L proudly, just like the Jimmy take. I'll hold that L. Next one, most improved.
Real quick, because I just want to hit on Aaron Jones real quick. I think everything you said is correct for like the player evaluation. What I think is hard is that I think he is the epitome of like the dead zone is not the dead zone anymore. It is not what it used to be. But I think he is the epitome of like a dead zone back in the terms of whatever structure you're drafting, he doesn't fit any of them at the point where he's going. Agreed. If you're going robust, right? Like you're almost already done with your running backs at that point, or you should be close to it or done. And you should starting to hit your wide receivers. Or if you're going like some sort of 0 RB build or something like that, then you're not taking him because he's too early. So what build does Aaron Jones fit? There's very few. So like the team structure wise with Aaron Jones sucks. And the other part is I just like AJ Dillon a lot where AJ Dillon is going. He is like a staple on some of my teams, and it's nothing to do with like I love it, AJ Dillon or anything. It's where he's going, the opportunity he's going to get. The team's probably gonna, like you said, it's gonna be a 50-50 split. So I like Aaron Jones a lot too, but I never click the button for Aaron Jones.
I agree. You definitely talked me into I wasn't like avoiding AJ Dillon, but you made a case during our underdog high stakes draft that totally sold me. All right, most improved player. I'm going to lead in with this one because I'm kind of excited about this guy, and it's been a little bit of a growing excitement. Not something I like this player, but I wasn't like, I would never, this is not a pound the table type of a guy for me for most of the draft season, but it is you could also call this guy like a bounce back player or not a comeback player because he wasn't hurt or anything like that, but most improved, I'm calling Elijah Moore for the Cleveland Browns. And it's because we saw flashes. He was an awesome prospect at Ole Miss. Then we saw flashes as a rookie with the Jets, but that it was a dumpster fire, right? I mean, my God, that offense was pathetic. Then last year, they bring Garrett Wilson in. It didn't work for him. Maybe the case is that he's just not as good as we hope. But I'm still holding on to the prospect pedigree and the rookie production. It's really hard to do what he did at Ole Miss, and it's really hard to do what he did as a rookie in the NFL on a really bad offense. And so I'm willing to write off last season as the Jets have no idea what they're doing on offense. It's, Zach Wilson and Mike White and Joe Flacco and God knows what, right? Now he goes to the Browns, who I'm not like a big Deshaun Watson bull this year, but I think the Browns of maybe any team in the NFL are fully all in, like all the way in, because everyone that basically works in that building, their jobs are on the line with how this team performs over the next couple of years, right? If Deshaun Watson is a mess and they lose, everyone's getting fired. Like the people selling tickets are getting fired. Everyone is fucking getting fired, right? Their whole, the franchise is based on Deshaun Watson succeeding. They brought him in, and you have Amari Cooper is still fine, but he's not. That's not Devontae Adams, to our earlier conversation. He's not Devontae. And certainly DPJ and Cedric Tillman are not. And David Njoku's fine. If someone can step up and like be kind of like a target dominator, as he was as a rookie, as he was at Ole Miss, out of the slot where he has no target competition, like in the slot over the middle of the field, I think Elijah Moore could end up being this guy. Like we're trying to do the Sky Moore thing. We're trying to do the Kadarius Toney thing. I think Elijah Moore might be that guy that fits that mold where, we keep hoping for it to happen. And I think it might happen this year where he could lead them in everything receiving. And if Watson he doesn't have to be totally old Watson, but like bounce back a little bit, Elijah Moore in the 8th round or whatever is just a smash.
So we had somebody in our Discord when we announced that this was a show tonight throw out an idea for an award, and it was the You Can't See Me Award, which is basically we all have players that we just overlook every single draft. Like for me, it's like Juju, right? I never see Juju's name on the screen. I never see.
Is he in the player pool?
Right.
In the player pool?
But Elijah Moore had been that guy for me, just based on the players going around him and everything like that. I still don't know what I want to do with him. I'm still not really drafting him a ton, but I did do a stream with Daigle and Gretsch and Kyle Dvorak, and we kind of talked about Elijah Moore briefly. And just like a brief conversation sometimes can make you go, oh, maybe I should be on this guy a little bit more. So maybe I haven't been on him more, but I've at least started the thought process that like maybe I should start to add some Elijah Moore to my player portfolio. And maybe it's easier now with the Kadarius Toney injury, right? Because I'm not going to stop drafting Toney. But now that Tony's going to fall like 2 rounds, Like maybe now this is the time where I start grabbing Elijah Moore, still grabbing Kadarius Toney, and correcting a little bit of that.
I like it. Great bring back, by the way, for Garrett Wilson, Brees, week 17 type stuff. I like him a lot. Who was yours?
I'm actually shocked we didn't land on the same player for this one. I went with Kyle Pitts for this one. This has to be Kyle Pitts here.
I put the very first player I put down was Kyle Pitts, and I said, this is too
on brand.
Too on. It was like the whole chat when it was whatever comeback player, they were like, "Oh, this is Gabe Davis," and I'm like, "Yeah." I of course wrote down Gabe Davis, but I was like, everybody knows that's what I'm going to say. Kyle Pitts, Gabe Davis. So I went to Elijah Moore, but I totally agree with this take.
You're allowed to do some of your some of the on-brand stuff here, but
I get sick of talking about the same players. Okay, I want to talk about somebody new every once in a while.
It's Kyle Pitts. It has to be Kyle Pitts, or we're just dusting off Kyle Pitts at this point, right? It's year 3. This is the quote-unquote tight end year, where we're getting, not a better quarterback, but we got Arthur Smith there, who's kind of anchoring it a little bit better. We do have Drake London there. We brought in Bijan Robinson to take some weight off, yada, yada, yada. All of that doesn't matter. This has to be the Kyle Pitts year. That's what it comes down to. Throw your analysis out. It's either this is the year, Kyle, or we're dusting you off. I'm dusting you off completely. Now you're a 6th-round pick, usually works out perfectly for some of the builds we're doing. It's now or never. It's literally now or never for Kyle Pitts. So he has to be the most improved, or I'm done with him completely.
Yeah. I would only caveat I would say is if Ritter is just as bad or somehow worse than Mariota, where we get the same highlight montage going into next year where, he's what that's one thing that, to your point about him being the most improved player, is that he doesn't actually have to even get better to be the best, to be the most improved best ball player. Cause that dude was open all the time last year. Marcus Mariota was just horrible. And so if Ritter can just be better than that, he doesn't have to be amazing. Just like when this dude is wide open 40 yards down the field, don't airmail it 60 yards out of bounds. And so, yeah, I will say, I think he was my initial answer, but I wanted to get a little frisky, and I do really like Elijah Moore, by the way, for most improved player. All right. I like this one. Also, this meme, this GIF, whatever you want to call it, is excellent. I'm gonna kick it to you because I got 2, and I still totally can't decide between who is he can't keep getting away with this player in best ball, meaning, of course, this year they're gonna do the things that no one is projecting, outperform expectations, or I guess technically it could be the opposite, but I viewed it as outperform expectations.
Same. And I had 2 guys as well. The first one was a running back in Arizona, which is James Conner.
Oh, interesting.
Because I keep fading James Conner year after year, and I keep eating shit because of it. And I'm so sick of it. And I'm sick of James Conner. And I just hope he retires and has a great life, but just not on the football field.
Right. He did have cancer, so we can't be too negative about
No, I want him to have a great life. Have a field day, just not on the football field. Do whatever.
Love you. Just stop scoring fantasy points,
just
please.
Stop scoring fantasy points. Get out of here. But the guy I'm going to go with, I'm going to stick with the Atlanta Falcons. And the ultimate, he can't keep getting away with this. The one that makes my blood boil every time he scored a touchdown last year, because he's done it for I think the past 17 years, and I just keep not drafting him, is Cordero Patterson. You can't keep getting, he's 100 years old. What are we doing? How is he still scoring 1 million fantasy points every year? And I keep going, nope, they drafted Tyler Algier. They're not going to play him as much. He's not going to get on the field, or this player or player X or this XYZ. And he still gets on the field. He still scores 103 touchdowns every single season. He has these breakaway games. He breaks DFS.
He's playing wide receiver. He's playing wide.
And you're just sitting there and you're like, this sucks. I hate this. Not only for best ball, but for DFS. Cordero Patterson comes in there and just ruins everything 4 or 5 times a year. And you're like, he's never in my player pool for either. And he does this, and he's literally, I think 34 years old this year.
Yeah, he is. Yeah,
And it's just
he's
like, dude, cut the
he's my
shit.
age. He's my
Cut
age.
the shit.
He's my dunking on NFL players. I
Oh
can
my
barely get
God.
out of. I can barely get out of bed in the morning.
God damn it. Just stop. Just again, go have a great life. Just don't do it on the football field. So I'm still not drafting him again this year. I'll probably eat crow again, but yeah, get out of here, Cordero Patterson.
He will be weird. We always talk about the last round guy you needed. He will be the guy again for the third year in a row or whatever it is. And we will be all pissed off because it's like, shocker, this really talented football player just kept doing really talented things again this year.
Yeah.
And
then insert the video of Bret Hart destroying the computer at ringside for me, because that's what I'll be doing.
I'm also not going to draft him, but he is not he can't keep getting away with this. I put 2 running backs on here because I absolutely could not decide between them. And it's only because of the most recent news we've gotten on one of them. So I'm going to start with the other guy. It's not like he was doing anything crazy 2 years ago, but last year we referenced David Montgomery in your usable week king, and Jamal Williams last year was maybe the single flukiest season I've ever seen in fantasy in my entire life. If Amon-Ra St. Brown gets tackled at the 1 yard line one more time, like I'll lose it, but Amon-Ra is going to lose it because he's probably got touchdown incentives or whatever. And Jamal Williams keeps getting all those touchdowns because every Lions wide receiver is allergic to the goal line. They fall down at the 1 every single time. And I just have this horrible feeling in the pit of my stomach that Kamara is going to get suspended and Kendre is like not going to be healthy to start the year. And everybody's loving the Taysom hype, right? Taysom has already risen up like 30 picks in ADP. And because he's a tight end, we can tell ourselves this story about Taysom. And it's going to be Jamal Williams. It's the Saints, because I like the Saints. I've made this known a lot of times. The Saints have the best schedule in the NFL. Derek Carr is a massive upgrade. And despite the fact that Michael Thomas only has one functioning leg, they still have a really talented offense. And they're just going to score a bunch of points. And Jamal Williams is going to keep fucking plunging in from the 1 yard line every goddamn week. And I'm just going to throw my phone against the wall every week playing Olave or Shaheed or whatever in DFS. And I just know that's going to happen. But I just do want to really quickly mention this is lining up to be the Josh Jacobs award, that he can't keep getting away with this only because he's holding out. So he got appropriately valued, or give or take appropriately valued, after his awesome year last year. And then, he doesn't get a contract and he hasn't signed his franchise tag, and he's being like real bougie about the whole holdout thing. Saquon is like saying like, yeah, I'm kind of, not happy, but we're trying to work it out. And Jacobs is just like, he was spotted on a flight leaving Las Vegas today. Like, he's just like, fuck you guys, I'm out of here, dude. Like, you guys go have fun in camp. I'm about to go to Cabo or whatever. Like, he's like, he is giving the middle finger to the Raiders, which is another issue for Devontae Adams. But like, this dude is going to go chill on a beach for a month and a half and then fall 4 rounds in ADP. And then he's going to come back and I'm going to have not drafted him. And he's going to do the Josh Jacobs bullshit again, like he did last year. And I will be saying he can't keep getting away with this. I felt like this is going to become the Josh Jacobs award after this year, if it happens. But to your point, I think that the Raiders have some pretty serious concerns with everything that's going on there. Very last award, the most valuable player. I'm very interested where you took this one because this was the hardest one. The other ones, like the subject narrows it down for you. This one is like, dude, you want to pick a 12th round guy? You want to pick a 2nd round guy? It's very tough. So being the host, I'm gonna make you go first because I'm very curious who you pick for MVP.
I also think this really depends on your site too, because I've been taking a lot of time trying to figure out like
if you want to differentiate, go. You can.
Well, I kind of just did it for all of them because it's just the guy. I think you just had to go through the guy that you're drafting the most, right? And I just went with Mahomes. I know that's like you didn't want to do the picks that you didn't want to do. The answer is going to be Jamar Chase, by the way. I am now 80 drafts into Best Ball Mania, and I have gotten the 102 twice. So my lack of Chase exposure for my like favorite player in the NFL, right? He's going to go out there and fucking crush this year. And it's not that I didn't want to draft him. It's that I was incapable of drafting him. Like I just wasn't allowed to. And I'm just going to have to watch every week and cry, right? Like that's what's going to happen. But I think like as much fun as all these other awards are, I just sat there. I looked at my exposure. Who is the guy that correlates with all my exposures? Like I have a few guys that are a little over him, but that's because they all correlate with him. And it's Mahomes specifically for DraftKings. I think like more than any other site based on some of the stuff we've talked about with bonus points and all that other stuff. So, I mean, you can make the case for a lot of different people on this one, but when you're doing this on your own, I think the easiest way to do it is you look at your exposures, and that's who you need to be your MVP. So for me, this is who I need to be my MVP in best ball this year.
Yep. That's kind of what I did. I went to exposures and I kind of just tried to look for themes, right? And obviously there's a lot of late round running backs. They don't generally have a theme correlated together. And the very, very clear theme, which is unsurprising given my coach of the year, is Lamar Jackson. Mm-hmm. And I think it makes a ton of sense, quarterback being the most valuable player, but it really is in best ball too, where we talked about like Jimmy Garoppolo just being a figment of the system and the situation that he was in. He's not valuable in and of himself. He's not elevating those players around him. They're elevating him. I'm not saying that Lamar Jackson is, the only reason that the Ravens will be good. But if Lamar Jackson is great, if Lamar Jackson is MVP level Lamar Jackson, and you add in Todd Monken, and you add in Zay Flowers, and you add in Odell Beckham, right? And J.K. Dobbins another year off of the ACL. It's like if Lamar's good, the downstream effects to best ball and fantasy football are fucking insane. Like absolutely insane. J.K. Dobbins should not go in the 5th, 6th round if Lamar Jackson is MVP Lamar Jackson. Mark Andrews can challenge Travis Kelce. He beat Travis Kelce for almost half the year last year. If Lamar Jackson is there with Todd Monken, right? J.K. Dobbins is one of the best pure rushers in the NFL. Now give him Lamar, like peak Lamar Jackson next to him, right? Slinging it around, running. Rashad Bateman, 1st round pick. Zay Flowers, 1st round pick. Odell Beckham, like older, but still a talented wide receiver. All of these guys. Gus Edwards, late in drafts, right? Isaiah Likely if Mark Andrews misses a week. There's like so many players that can be stone cold smashes in fantasy solely because Lamar Jackson, lives up to this. And it's not just because Lamar needs to be good. He's always been good. But now we're taking Lamar in a new system that allows him to elevate these other players around him. He really hasn't been able to do that before. He's really been restricted in the Greg Roman offense. And if we're taking the reins off, and we're going to see how good Lamar is this year. Maybe he won't be, but I kind of think he will be. And you put all that talent around him, and my God, obviously you get him a little bit later than the other elite quarterbacks. And I think he has not much anymore. The field got sharp. He used to be able to get him like maybe early 4th, and the other guys went, 2nd round. The field has figured that part out. But, Andrews 2 rounds after Kelce, right? All the receivers are much cheaper, and Lamar himself will be a good pick regardless. But pretty excited for the Ravens. Obviously, I made that known, and I think Lamar Jackson has a really good path to the MVP of best ball. Anything else that we want to hit here before we get out of here?
Just to close out that last conversation, I really think this is going to be, you're going to look at the playoff teams this year, and I think it's just going to be littered with elite quarterbacks between Mahomes, Hurts, Lamar. I'm going to put Herbert in that in that category as well.
Burrow.
Or like, I think that you're going to see an overwhelming majority of teams that have elite QB. So like, if your whole thing is like low advanced, like high upside stuff, maybe you don't want to do the elite QB. But for me, I'm just pounding elite quarterbacks like all the time, no matter who it is.
Only caveat to that I would say is that if you draft a bunch of the elite QBs, they can't all be super popular in the playoffs. Now you're going to have a bunch of guys who, right, if Lamar is the MVP of best ball or whatever, he's going to be very popular, as are his stacking partners. But like that would make Burrow and Fields lower owned. So if you were if you happen to sneak, right, if Lamar wins actual NFL MVP and just sets the world on fire, and Mahomes is Mahomes, and none of these guys get hurt, that's probably going to make Fields and Burrow and Herbert lower owned in the playoffs. Right. But if all your teams are consolidated around those like 6 guys or whatever, you're going to sneak through Herbert teams. You're going to sneak through Burrow teams. And so just a little extra caveat that I think is
which is what I'm banking on, helpful, to be completely honest. So
I like it.
Yeah. No, that was my last point. Giveaway in the Discord. Make sure you go to the Discord, go to giveaway. You have to do it in Discord. You have to follow those instructions, because that's where I pull the names from. I pull them from the giveaway channel. And there we spin a wheel Sunday morning and somebody gets the Deshaun Jackson signed replica helmet.
I'm going to try to win it. Make sure you go there, as Rob said, for Sunday for the giveaways. And tomorrow night, Rob and I are going to start to walk through our exposures. I will give away my Kadarius Toney exposure, which is more than I was hoping for, given the fact he's already fucking hurt. But if you want to have your question, comment, anything read, drop a comment on this video or drop a 5-star review on the podcast feed on your podcast provider of choice, iTunes, whatever. And we'll read it tomorrow night, again, assuming it's appropriate. Like I said, if you want to talk shit about my hat collection, or the fact that I like to collect Jordans, or the fact that Rob still has his very first pair of shoes, you can do that. There they are, right there. Or the fact that he has a Deshaun Jackson autographed helmet, not an actual good player left with the Eagles. Or the fact that he has a Kurt Warner.
Brian Dawkins helmet right there.
Dude, Brian Dawkins might be my favorite player. So that's, if we ever give that one away, we're shutting down.
We are never giving that one away.
We're shutting down all the streams, and I'm flying out there and figuring out how the hell I can get my hands on that, because Brian Dawkins, Ed Reed is like 1A, 1B for me. That was like my favorite player. So
that was the one thing I bought with my money when I won the World Series. When I didn't win it, but when I came in 138th, I found that helmet and bought it. It was one of my 2 dream helmets.
Smart man. God damn it. That smart man. But we will be back tomorrow at the same time, 7 p.m. Eastern, and we are going to walk through our exposures, player exposures, stack exposures, right? Week 17 exposures, everything so far in best ball draft season, heading into this final stretch run for the last month and a half. Geez, I wish it was week and a half, honestly. Month and a half, and see where we are happy, where we need to course correct, where we need to pump the brakes a little bit. Shout out to you, Kadarius Toney. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Have a good night. Peace.
Woo! Those were some spicy takes. Want to stay up to date with all of the other spicy takes we're going to have over here at Spike Week? Why don't you press that subscribe button below? You turn notifications on. We draft a team. Boom. You know about it. We have another spicy take. Boom, you know about it. You can be there. You can draft with us. You want to stay up to date? That's how you do it. All right, we'll catch you later next time here at Spike Week.